This is DRF Race of the Day.
Hi everybody, Mike Beer here with Thursday's DRF Race of the Day. We're going to Belmont Park for race number 8, an entry-level allowance race for fillies and mares on the Widener turf course. Let's take a look at this field of 9 fillies or mares entered into the field. Once again, quick reminder that you can download free formulator past performances for this race on the Race of the Day event page at DRF.com. This is a pretty well-matched field right here. 9 horses entered. I don't know that there's necessarily a standout. Just to give you a little bit of context about how close it could be out on the racetrack. The ones who have raced regularly on the turf, there is a horse who is making her turf debut in here, the number 6 Ice Princess, and also another horse in So Darn Hot, who's only raced once on the grass. The others in this field have combined to make 62 turf starts. The top buyer for each one of those horses falls between 80 and 84 among those 62 starts. So this is a very, very well-matched field. Some of these fillies are more lightly raced than the others. I suppose that could be an advantage in a race like this one. At the end of the day, I think this race might just come down to trips, and then maybe whether or not either one of the new faces or one of the more lightly raced fillies is able to take a step forward in here. Let's start out with taking a look at the Timeform US pace projector, because the pace could certainly play a factor in here. I mean, there are a couple of horses who I feel like have, plenty enough speed to get forward in here. But anybody who pays attention to New York racing on the grass, you don't get a lot of fast paces around here. It's generally 1 or 2 horses going, everybody else taking a hold. The pace projector feels like the number 2, a Purite, the Todd Pletcher trained filly, can make the early lead in here, and that's certainly a possibility. She is a horse who likes to race forward. I can't say I'm her biggest fan overall. She did win the last time she ran on the Belmont turf course back in October of last year. Is the day that she broke her maiden on the turf. She got right to the lead in that race, went very slow on the pace, never really faced a challenge in there, and won clear at the end with an 84 Beyer speed figure, which remains her career top. She's run 3 times since then. I don't think she's necessarily run that well in any of those races, and again, I wasn't a big fan of hers leading into that win. I sort of felt like, the way that she won that race, that it did look pretty good visually. It just had everything to do with circumstance, and they're getting loose on the lead, taking advantage of a pretty weak field. We'll see if she can run back to one of those. She has the right rider here. She's got speed in a race where a lot of horses may not go, and if she gets loose again, Luis Saez is the kind of rider who can really take advantage of that. So we'll see what a Purite does here. Again, just a filly I'm not that big of a fan of, but I suppose that she could win. Stolen Holiday, the 3, is the other horse that they sort of have up close on the pace projector, and she does have speed. Very lightly raced, ran off the layoff here in her 4-year-old debut, just her 3rd career start back in April. Went to the lead that day, took a little pressure up there, got tired in the stretch. Maybe that was a race she needed. I think this filly has a lot of upside and might have some talent, so she's definitely a horse to keep an eye on in here. The horses that bookend this field, the number 1 Candy Flower, the number 9 Princess Fausia. These are 2 horses who have a few races in common, and I feel like they sort of have a lot of the same things to offer in here as well. They both raced a little bit more cheaply than this at times in their career, but they're both just very, very consistent. It feels like they show up every time and just sort of run the same race. They both have good speed, or enough speed anyway, to get forward if that's where they wanted to be. They don't need the lead, but they could certainly get there if their riders wanted it. Candy Flower's drawn down towards the inside. The last time we saw her was in a race similar to this one, and she ran fine in there. Set a really nice trip tracking the pace center, took over to a short lead at the top of the stretch. She did her best with that trip, just could not hold on over a pair of Chad Brown train runners who came from off the pace to run 1-2. She did hold on for 3rd in that race. I thought she ran fine in there. Princess Fausia, sort of a similar situation, was in that same race, finished just behind Candy Flower in 4th. Set a pretty good trip, though. Didn't try to make the lead that day. She had the rail in that spot. This time she'll move to the outside. They didn't try to make the lead with her in there. They just sat in behind, set a really nice trip. Never really had any trouble in the stretch and just couldn't quite get up for 3rd. These 2 horses look very much the same on paper. I think they can both get good trips in here, and I don't think either one of them would be very much of a surprise at what could be a fair price. Purite, we already talked about. I'm not a big fan. Maybe she'll just win. Maybe she'll go to the front in here, and that'll be it. I just don't like this horse that much, and I didn't feel like she was going to be a great price. Stolen Holiday, it's just a horse I'm a fan of. I'm willing to give her one more chance in here. We'll see what kind of price she goes off in this race. The only reason, and we get to the picks later, the only reason I don't have her on top is I just felt like maybe she'd take too much money. And I'm kind of at the point now where I don't want too short a price on her. I do think there's still a chance she could turn out to be pretty good, though. I really liked her career debut, which was a winning one down at Tampa last April. I thought she ran really well that day, always traveled in that race. Still a little green in there, just sort of breezing into the finish. So put that field away easily. Came home just in a nice canter, and it looked like she was going to be pretty good. Only made one more start up here in a pretty tough allowance race last summer. Contested the pace, had a short lead in the stretch, got out finished. I thought she ran fine overall. Didn't make another start after that. And again, she was off the long layoff last time. When she, took a little bit of pressure on the lead. Princess Fawzia was also in that race. I thought she was pretty game in there, just sort of couldn't get away to a big enough lead in the stretch and then couldn't hold off the closers. I guess she ran okay in there. I do think she can take a step forward in here. And if she does, I think she's going to be tough. The 4 is Pecatonica, a New York bred. She's won 4 of her 14 career turf starts. I feel like when you start taking her form apart, and this will be her first start in a while out of the state bred ranks, because she just cleared her final state bred condition last time when she, off the layoff, somehow was able to get loose or to get to the front on a very slow pace, and she just held on in that race. She's taken advantage of some circumstances in her wins. I don't want to knock her too much. She's probably going to be a big price in this race. And, to her credit, she can get any kind of a trip in the race and still run. So that's a good thing. At a price you could use her somewhere. I wanted other horses in here. Wicked Amber, overall is probably a little underrated. She's 2 for 17 on turf in her career, but this is her surface. Her starts, when they finally came back to turf earlier this spring, I mean, she didn't win any of those first 3 starts, but she ran fine in all of them. Didn't run as well last time when they tried to go 1.25 miles with her, but cutting back in here, she's going to be a big price once again. You could probably use her underneath somewhere. It's not like she's facing a bunch of killers in here. The 6 is Ice Princess. She is making her turf debut in this spot for Danny Gargan. A little bit interesting, I feel like this horse is. Palace Malice is sort of a versatile sire. He can certainly get a turf winner. I think he's about 10% with his turf route runners throughout his sire career so far. The Dam was a winner going long on the turf. Her first foal is a 6-time winner on the grass. There's plenty of turf pedigree here. And at the end of the day, Ice Princess is not a bad horse at all. She's a stakes winner against New York breds on the main track. She's grade 3 placed on the main track going long. She's just run, several pretty good races, and she does have the pedigree to handle the surface switch. It is at least worth pointing out that she was entered to make her career debut back in September 2019. She was entered for turf that day to debut on this surface. The race got rained off. She wound up handling that sloppy track really well and blowing that field out to win by 12 lengths. So, Danny Gargan kept her on the main track, and you'd have to say it was pretty successful with him doing that. She won a couple of more races, including that Maddie May Stakes, placed in a couple of other stakes races. She's now grade 3 placed. It's worked out for them, keeping her on the main track, but I'm not that surprised that they're coming back to turf now just to see what she can do. She's bred for this surface. They wanted to run her on this surface at the beginning of her career. I read Ortiz is named to take them out on Ice Princess's first day back after missing a couple of weeks. So there's plenty to like about this horse. We'll see how she handles it. If she handles turf and runs one of her good races, she could easily win this race. Star Divine is the 7. This is an interesting horse in this race too. Debuted sprinting. Even though she didn't take that much money, went off at 9-1, going 6 furlongs in her debut and won. But you'd have to think, that was a horse that you want to take seriously. Her trainer, Jorge Abreu, just is aces with first-time starters, and he had this horse ready. She broke a little slowly in that race, but just rated off the pace, always traveled very well in there, got herself to the outside in the stretch, just powered down the outside, right by that field, won that race very easily. Really nice debut. Made her second start, stretched out to 7 furlongs in the grade 3 Soaring Softly. She ran fine. Got a good trip in there, kept right up there tracking a big long shot on the lead. Was very confidently ridden into the stretch, but once she took over, she couldn't get away from that field and wound up getting out finished. Only beaten a length though, finished 4th. I thought she ran fine. They're going to stretch her out here. She has enough pedigree to handle at least 1 mile and a 16th. We'll see if she can improve one more time. I don't think that's impossible. Joel Rosario is going to take over here. I think she can win. Just another horse in this race who, dropping out of a grade 3. I thought maybe she'd take some money. And I didn't think, at least at this stage, that she had any kind of edge on this field. Maybe she'll take a big step forward, though. That's definitely possible. So we'll see what kind of price she is. The 8 is So Darn Hot. I think this horse is very interesting here for George Weaver. Off the layoff for her 4-year-old debut. Mostly campaigned on dirt as a 3-year-old last year and ran pretty well in some races on that surface. Their last 2 starts, obviously, the Black Eyed Susan, I would give her a pass for. She didn't run that well that day without a great trip. And then they came back for an allowance race going 1 mile against Mrs. Danvers. Just a race that came back pretty fast. She didn't run well that day. She got the rest of the year off. She was on relatively short rest there. I'm not going to be too hard on her for that because I thought all of her prior races were actually pretty good. That includes the maiden win when they went turf to dirt with her last summer, where she just kept right up close to the pace, put away a horse who at that time was in pretty good form and thankful and won clear. I thought she ran well breaking her maiden, but I also thought before they switched her over from turf to dirt to break her maiden, I thought she ran well on her only turf start, and we're going to take a look at that right now. This is last May at Gulfstream. The deal with this race is it just feels to me like I think she ran better than it looks on paper. A race where she just got shuffled back early in the race, and I think that really cost her. She got into a little bit of traffic, shuffled back off the pace, and I just think it cost her in there because the pace was very slow. The horses that run 1, 2 in here, and they're both big prices, just got right up close and sat good trips, and So Darn Hot couldn't get there, shuffled back, and then Joe Bravo was trying to make an in-out run with her coming to the stretch. He couldn't get out to the clear, and you see there in the stretch, she's sort of over behind horses the entire way. But she kept finishing, kept racing on very gamely in there. I thought overall that was a pretty good performance in her one and only turf start, and obviously she took a step forward after that, and I feel like I don't think her improving necessarily had to be because of the surface. I think it could just be because she was in pretty good form at the time, and I think she ran better than it looks in her only turf start. So I'm very interested in her coming back off the layoff to try turf for the second time in her career. I think it could really work out for her, and for whatever it's worth, George Weaver over the long haul hasn't always been a guy that has had his horses ready to go off of longer layoffs like this. But more recently, he's actually been very strong in this category. 180 plus day layoffs over just the past year. He's 5 for his last 18, 28%. The ROI is $2.50, 3 for 10 on turf in that sample with an ROI of over $3. So he's been a lot better in that category lately. So I feel like if he can have So Darn Hot ready off the layoff, she could be pretty dangerous in there, and she's not a slow horse. I feel like she could get a better position this time than she got in her only other turf start. We already talked about Princess Fawzia. She could win. I'm a fan of hers. I think she's actually a pretty good horse. She's underrated, a lot like the horse down in the rail, Candy Flower. I think they're both sort of interchangeable and could get the right trips in this race. But I didn't take them because I want to try So Darn Hot. We'll put the picks up there now. I want to try this horse. I feel like she's going to be a price in here, and I think her only turf start to date is better than it looks on paper. So I'm going to take her on top, and I put her over Stolen Holiday, a horse who I'm not really done with yet. I'm interested to see what she does here. I still think there's a chance she turns out to be pretty good, but I'm going to try So Darn Hot in Thursday's DRF race of the day. It's a pretty good one. Race number 8 at Belmont Park. Approximate post time. Remember, it's a late post time down there at Belmont on Thursday, so approximate post time for the 8th is 6:45 Eastern time. Good luck.